Welcome to the podcast extra. The Ed Still Talks About podcast extra to the main podcast of the Ed Talks About podcast. I don't know why I explain it in that manner, but I have. So, those who either haven't heard the main podcast, hello, I'm Eddie, and I've got Shadow from Shadow Bright Cosplay.
Hi.
Hi! And it's been talking about disability within the cosplay community, and I have to say, I learnt lots from that podcast. Honestly, I sat there thinking, oh dear Lord, I don't do half the things I should be checking with my model should they have a neurospicy mind or hidden disability, things like that. I'm like going, oh God, I hope people haven't judged me for that.
Yeah, secretly we've been judging you all along, but we just didn't tell you.
Okay. No, but I'm generally trying to. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to be really. I'm going to be. I'm going to be brave when I ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
What was your besides the actual first impression? I'm talking about the EGX impression because clearly that's how I think how we
Yeah.
first met. What was your like impression of me, and especially when I said, "Oh, let's get some photos and things like that"? How I wanted to hear from your point of view how that went for you.
So, like, EJX is interesting because it is very much a gaming con, not so much a cosplay
Oh
con.
God, yeah.
So the stakes are much lower as a cosplayer. Like, I was wearing a fairly comfortable costumes for as far as
Mm.
costumes can be comfortable. So like the like high energy, like hey, super enthusiastic was actually really good for me because it kind of restarted my energy for the day when I was wilting.
Oh, that's good.
So you were like super like enthusiastic and really open about liking the costume,
Mm.
which particularly if you spent months making something can be really helpful if someone is really openly enthusiastic about what you've made.
Mm.
Particularly if it's like we met you kind of past the middle of the day when I'm flagging a little bit.
Mm.
I get infected by that energy, so that's super great.
No, I do believe having good energy just to keep just to keep
Yeah,
going, and I think for me that's my way of like what's the word giving a good impression so that
yeah.
I'm okay to shoot with. But I do know sometimes that my enthusiasm can go against me. That they think, oh God, he's really loud, he's really enthusiastic. So
No, I
therefore,
love it. Like that sort of slightly chaos gremlin energy. If someone is too like formal and straight laced, I go a bit like,
oh
I mean, we're all
really?
here to have a good time.
Mm.
um, yeah, no, it's great. Like, I love a bit of enthusiasm, people that
Yeah,
can be like open about being excited about things.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I do that, and there's no stopping me from doing
Oh
that
God.
because
Oh God, we still got that TikTok that I need to share. I
I
need to.
know
Oh, yeah. That's. I think when this.
something judging you.
Yeah. Um. I think they'll go out. So we're recording this 1 week. It's not coming
Yeah.
out. It's not coming out this week. It'll probably go out
Hmm.
the week that this podcast goes out, which is next week for
Right.
us. But
Okay.
but for us, next week is this week for them. Oh God, my brain. Oh God. But yeah, for
We'll
us, it's
try and
coming.
put it all in the same week. There we go.
Yeah, generally I will. I generally will. So I will tag you in that. Just a little preview. It's my little stupid series of like people like interrupting my intro video that I'm trying to do for my TikTok channel.
Oh, we're food and cosplay.
Yeah, exactly. It's just yeah. But genuinely, I can't remember if I've ever seen that costume, and I've taken photos of. It was Miss Fortune, wasn't it?
Captain Fortune, yeah.
Oh,
So it's
sorry,
like
Captain.
her like pirate skin.
Ah, I got you there.
Actually, fun story about that costume is I didn't make it. Um,
Oh,
I have recently started like with like some of my friends who play like a cosplay musical chairs,
yeah, yeah.
where it takes months and months to make a new costume,
Mm,
and most of us are going to 10 to 15 cons a year.
yeah.
And it's completely unsustainable to have new costumes for
Oh, yeah,
every
yeah.
con. So rather than kind of reaching for fast fashion, because that is out of my budget, B, better for the planet and all that, we started trading costumes. So that costume was made by my friend Faye Folk,
Mm,
um, and they were done wearing it, but there was nothing wrong with the costume, so they gave it to me, and
mm,
now me and my friend Yaz wear it.
mm.
And once I don't want to wear it anymore, I'll find another home. And
Yeah.
I think it's such a wonderful thing to do.
Oh, 100%. This is the question I forgot to ask on the main podcast. I'll do it
Mhm.
now, and that might be revealed in a podcast extra
Yeah.
highlight reel that goes onto the main podcast when I
Okay.
can't be bothered to record a real pod. Anyway, you don't need to know that. I need to know that. But anyway, here's the question. So now that we know that you do borrow or are given cosplays, does
Hmm.
that affect you in any way about how you then have try to uh, blend it with your own disability, or you just got to suck it up that said, oh, there's no space for this or that? Do you get what I'm saying? Because you were talking about how
Yeah.
much you plan ahead, trying to fit medicine, EpiPen,
So
things. Yeah, go on.
I can't borrow all my friends' costumes,
Mm,
but I'm not trading costumes with random people. I'm trading costumes with my friends who are all very very well aware of like what can go wrong, what does go wrong, what I carry around with me.
mm.
Um, so I will borrow costumes from them that will also work for me. And don't forget that like disabilities, particularly neurodivergencies, are super common in the cosplay community. So a lot of their costumes already have adaptations that I make in my costumes as well.
Mm.
Like I have one friend who lines all of her costumes in the same fabric so that everything that's touching her body is the same texture.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting.
and that's something that I do too. So I mean,
Yeah, no, which makes
it
sense.
works. And sometimes it is just a case of like stitching a little pocket in something. And as long as
Mm,
I really carefully undo those stitches when I give the costume back to them, that doesn't matter.
mm.
So it's between making a couple of little adaptations and which you kind of have to do anyway to make a costume fit properly.
Yeah.
Um, and having friends that have similar adaptations already in their costumes.
Mm.
It works out just
No,
fine.
absolutely. Have you had to, if there's a costume that's been given to you which hasn't been adapted, do you make adaptations to it, or are you
Yeah.
you still conscious that, oh, if I have to pass it on, they have to undo it? Maybe.
So it depends whether if I'm being given a costume with no expectation of giving it back, I will adapt the shit out of it.
Mm,
Um, if I'm borrowing a costume and I have the expectation to give it back, if I need to make any adaptation to it, I'll always discuss it with the person I'm borrowing it from.
mm,
Um, and if I make any adaptations, I make sure to undo them before I hand the costume back.
mm,
I'm not going to expect the person that I'm borrowing that costume from to kind of do that work.
mm.
At MegaCon earlier this year, I borrowed my friend's Merkwolf costume,
Oh,
and
yes, yes,
it just didn't have a pocket for me to put an EpiPen in.
yeah,
So I stitched one in with just a little like a little couple of hand stitches. Like an EpiPen doesn't weigh that much, so it's not super hard to do.
yeah, yeah.
And I just unpicked the stitches and washed the costume and gave it back to her. And I told her that I was doing that and checked that she was okay with it. And she was like, fine, whatever, we don't care. Um, yeah, so as long as you discuss it with the person you're borrowing it from, a lot of this sort of, as long as you're not gluing anything,
Yeah.
stitching can always be undone.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay, no, again, just someone who's a photographer, don't. I know it's obvious to to
Mm.
most people or to other people, but just in case there might be a different answer to that, so
Yeah.
that's why I asked the silly, stupid questions.
I think kind of communication is the key there.
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
be respectful of
Mm,
other people's work and hand it back the way you got it. Like, I was saying in the same way that I always brush the wig out and wash the socks that go with the costume because I'm not giving someone my stinky socks, you
yeah,
know? It's just common courtesy.
100%. Yes, 100%. What I was going to say. So we promised some cosplay horror stories.
Oh,
And we've already heard the one where you fell off a bridge in
yeah,
your armor.
yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you got a buttload of stories that I don't know if are safe to talk about on the podcast, but I don't care because it's behind a paid wall, so sod it. Go for it.
Um,
The floor is yours. You tell whatever story, and I'll just sit here not judging you, honest.
so one of my like main horror stories, I quite often get asked the question by people, "Oh, but what if the costume breaks?" I'm like, well, I once made a breastplate for my Alexstrasza costume. That was one of those like typical World of Warcraft battle bikinis.
Mm-hmm.
And the piece that was holding the two cups together at the front in the design is only a chain. Now, I had put a warbler bracket there that was about an inch wide that cracked in the middle of a con day, in the middle of a con hall. And that breastplate had my pauldrons and my cape attached to it. So the second that cracked, the whole breastplate split open down the front.
All right.
So let's just say there was a couple of guys in that con hall that had a great convention that year. And that's when I really, really learned to appreciate the wonderful people from Cosplay Central who totally saved my ass and rebuilt half a breastplate in the middle of a convention while I was like hiding in the changing rooms.
Oh no.
That's the convention where we learned about redundant attachments.
I mean, yes.
And then there was the time where I didn't. So I have some skin issues that are caused by some of the medications that I take, which make my skin like super, super dry. So the first time I did body paint, I didn't account for that.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's obvious now, but yeah, carry on.
I painted myself blue for a costume, and didn't really check whether or not that blue would stain my skin. And I had to go to work the next day. Anyway, so then my nickname was just Smurf at work for the next like 3 years. I never lived that down. That's when we learned we try things out before we do it, before we go to the con. And then there was the year where I had gotten like the magnetic lashes for the first time. Didn't really know what to do with them.
So hang on. Magnetic eyelashes, or
yes?
Okay, yes. Carry on.
So they come with like an eyeliner that you could kind of magnet them onto.
No, I see. For years, I've not known what that really meant until I saw it on TV. I went, "Oh, that's interesting." I think don't think TV, but I think social media. But carry on.
So like apparently one of these lashes had been like half hanging off my eye, and I couldn't see that, and no one said anything. And there was a photographer that took like a good 20 minutes to take a bunch of shots of me with this eyelash hanging half off my face. And I was like, why didn't you say something? Anyway, yeah, so that's when I learned that magnetic eyelashes are not for me.
I can tell you why we didn't point it out to you, because we thought it was probably part of the look.
No. It looked terrible.
Honestly, because sometimes I do take so many photos, I have to like work out on the fly what the costume is, or what the character is, and then you just have to accept what's presented in front of you.
That makes me feel a little bit better then.
Yeah.
And I have like every other cosplayer probably the horror story about getting cosplay contacts that were not good enough quality.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I won't name them, but I know there's a cosplayer who I was trying to get them on the podcast to do an episode about contact lenses, because insensitively, now thinking about it, I was like, oh, this person's had a bad reaction with the contacts. I wonder if I can get them on the podcast for them to talk about it.
Well, I mean, I'll make a point of talking about it, because I wear a lot of contacts with my costumes, because I do feel like it adds quite a lot. But it's like the one thing I will never skimp on. If your contacts are costing less than kind of 15 quid a set, they're not good enough. And it's your eyesight, and it's just not something you fuck with.
Oh, definitely, 100%. You know, I don't want to gross you out. But I have seen like videos on, I'm sure it's on TikTok, where people's contact lenses have like gone behind them,
their eye.
But they, for some reason, they just kept putting more in, and then I'm assuming this is like I don't know if it's been weeks or months.
Like your a contact slipping behind your eye is a thing that can happen, and you should go see a doctor about that like straight away.
Yeah, but I've definitely seen a video where they've pulled out so many, and it's like, no, I sorry to gross people out. Who are
terrible,
who have paid to listen to this. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I've grossed you out, but we did say this is a horror podcast. But
like if you're gonna do contacts, and I'm not saying that you should, like, it's always a choice, even in competitions. Like, no one is expecting you to wear contacts. But if you're gonna do it well. do your research
Yeah.
and try them beforehand, because they can really, really screw up a convention weekend for you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and you don't want like after effects of it either temporarily or permanently ruin
Yeah.
your eyesight because um, not on the same level. I remember one year I had a real bad reaction to hay fever, and I kept
Mm-hmm.
rubbing my eyes, and it got to a point where I could
Yeah.
see that I rubbed my eyes so much I took a layer off of my eyes,
Yeah.
and that freaked me out so badly because I thought, holy shit, I don't know if this is permanent or not. If there's going to
Yeah.
be like a divot that I can see for the rest of my life. Luckily, it's healed over, but honestly, I
Yeah.
just, oof,
No, it's seriously dangerous.
mm,
I tend to, whenever I get a beginner cosplayer asking me about it, I tend to say don't bother.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
but
is it because it's just to get used to the costume, just for ease, and then when you're more experienced, that you've got that
yeah.
down to a T, then
Hmm.
up your game that way rather than try to go full throttle on the
Yeah.
get go. Yeah.
It's just going to a convention is such an overwhelming experience, particularly if it's your
Mm,
first time going.
yeah.
Wearing costumes are generally in some sort of way uncomfortable,
Yeah.
whether they're heavy or they're made out of polyester, so you're hot, or
Yeah.
you're probably wearing a wig. Like, it's a lot going on. It's a lot to manage as well. Like,
Yeah.
particularly if you've just started making costumes, and
Mm.
I mean, something will always break, something will always fall off. You then don't also want to be worrying about contacts.
Yeah.
Like, leave it for the second or the third con. I'm all for like being really gung ho and going for it.
Yeah.
This is the one thing where I'm like, just leave it,
Yeah.
because it also takes an inordinate amount of research to do contact safely,
Oh god, yeah.
and practice and whatnot. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
get the clothes staying right fast, and then think about contact.
No, 100%. Yeah, yeah. That's such a good advice. That's good advice. I'm trying to think if I've got any horror stories. The only horror stories I've had from a photographer's point of view is basically my lenses.
Yeah,
Um,
never dropped one.
oh, I've dropped many, if I'm
Oh
honest.
dear. Oh.
Oh, I remember. So back in the, as they say, the good old days when London Super Comic Con was at the
Mm-hmm.
Excel.
Yeah.
As you know, being a first time photographer, I thought, all right, I bought a DSLR camera. Okay, that's cool. Do I need a camera bag? A proper No. Do you know what? One of these normal backpacks will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very conscious how loose everything was, and I try not to like overpack it so that
Yeah.
I would lose things. It got to a point when I was like pulling things out, and I can't remember what I was pulling out at the time, but I remember pulling something out, and I heard something hit the ground. It wasn't my camera, but it was my 50mm lens,
Oh.
and it was to be fair, I no, it was the expensive one actually. It's my it was
The
at the
secondhand cringe I'm getting from that.
yeah. It was my 1.4 50mm lens, which at the time cost me 300 quid, and to me at the time, £300 was a lot of money. Yeah, that for me was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I had to get that. I didn't buy a new one. I got it fixed because
Mm-hmm.
I remember me and my dad. He was helping me buy that lens for me, so I've got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
attachment to that lens. I actually got that lens fixed 3 or 4 times because it has hit the ground multiple times or it's jammed up. So yeah, that's how much sentimental. I've spent more time repairing it
Yeah.
than actually probably gone should just bought a new one. I'm on my second 50mm lens because it has finally jammed up, and I'm like, that's it. Do you know what? I'm just going to leave it as it is. That
Yeah.
that is now fixed for me. That's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in New York Comic Con, and just to say, when you're at the Javits Center, it's just concrete everywhere. It's just concrete everywhere.
Oh God.
Yep. So the next lens that hit the floor, which is entirely my fault. So
Mm-hmm.
um, not that it's a big design flaw from Peak Design backpack, but
Mm-hmm.
rather than to get things from it, you have to open a side panel rather than
Oh
unzipping it
yeah.
from the front or the back. It's a
Yeah.
side panel, and it's so helpful to have it side because you can have the bag sit in front of your chest, open the flap, and pull what you need. So it has been
Yeah.
helpful, and 99.9% of the time, it's been brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
This one time, I say one time, Oh no, I can. Yeah, I'll get to that story in a minute. I forgot to zip it up, and it just hit the ground, and I just went, "Fuck!" I was in the middle of no, yeah, I was in a blend of between yelling, screaming, and crying all at the same time, but knowing that was all my fault and there was nothing I could do about it. I was in a different country. It's not like I could to the shops and bought a new one. I don't think. I mean, I could have done, but the only thing I said to myself was, luckily, it's the telephoto lens that hit the
Mm-hmm.
ground. Though that costs a lot of money, like £1,000. I went, at least I've got another lens I could just use to take photos
Yeah.
still, which I felt like I could still get good photos from. Um, but yeah, that has happened. And years later, it's subsequently happened again that I forgot to zip up. It's hit the floor, luckily onto grass, and it's the same telephoto lens of
Right.
70 to 200. And as soon as I picked it up, took the mud off and put it into my camera again, just check, all fine, went good. And now have such a real chronic anxiety that I have not zipped up the side of my bag every time now. So yeah,
Oh yeah, you get a bit paranoid about it.
that's the word, paranoid.
Yeah.
I get so paranoid by it. Oh
Yeah.
god.
Well, in the
Um.
same way, I'm paranoid about straps breaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Yeah. And like I said, at least the time every time that something's happened to my lens, it's not because the manufacturer's failed me. It is someone called Eddie that has failed me,
Hmm.
and there's no
Mm-hmm.
one there's no
Yeah.
one else I can blame but this person called Eddie. Oh wait, that's me.
Oh,
So
oh dear.
so things like that. Oh no, I can tell you another horror story right at the beginning of my thing. So I was at London Film Comic Con when it was
Mm-hmm.
still at Earl's Court. And I remember taking some photos during the beginning of the day before doing a schedule shoot.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I decided to change up the way I backed up my photos. And
Yeah.
I think I only had one card at the time, or one or two cards, but the other one was out of commission. Or I think it was filled up, and I had. Yeah, anyway, so I tried to back it up, and I think at the time I was using a Chromebook, thinking I'm smart here. I'll just transfer it this way.
Yeah.
When I got home on the Monday, I looked at my stuff. I went, "Oh shit, it's gone,
Oh
all of it."
no.
It not for some reason it didn't transfer over. I reused the SD card, so the morning stuff was lost, and
Oh
I had to
no.
use some data recovery software to find those photos.
Oh
So
dear.
I now never ever format an SD card. I will transfer the photos onto different hard drives and onto my computer, but the
Yeah.
SD card I will not touch until I've finished the project, transferred
Yeah.
it onto across into my cloud storage or onto my hard drive before I
Yeah.
go, right, SD card can now be wiped. But
Yeah. Right.
even
Safe
then
and sorry.
I'm like double checking it. Have I made a copy of
Mm.
this? Yeah, and like yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so lesson learned. Lesson learned. So
Mm.
yeah. So those are my horror stories that come to my mind about it. But yeah, um, yeah,
Yeah. I
I,
mean, I
yeah.
have a lot of horror stories about making cosplays, but also this. I get asked quite a lot why I tend to use shadow bright on my publications of varying kind.
Oh, I forgot to ask that question. That's usually my
Yeah.
other question. Why? But no, hang on, let's do that one then. So why
Talk
are you
about
call?
if we're talking about horror stories, this is one we need to address. So I
Yeah,
stopped using my real name
yeah, which is
because it
fine.
is fairly distinctive.
Okay, that's fine.
And there's quite a lot of people that kind of know the rough area where I live. So someone figured out where I worked
Jesus Christ,
and
no,
then proceeded to turn up there.
no.
Um, yeah. So if you know me and you know my real name, I consider you a friend.
That's fine, and that's fine, and I don't, but that's fine. I'm not putting any offense. But I just want to do a quick PSA, even though it's behind a paid wall at the moment. Do not do that type of thing.
No.
Do not find someone at their workplace. You may think that's clever, cute, or something may happen out
No.
there.
It's creepy.
It's creepy as fuck, and you're going to end up in the back of a police van. Do
Yeah.
not do that shit. Jesus Christ. Sorry.
So right then and there, I stopped using my real name for anything.
Yeah.
And it's always something that I recommend. I get
Oh, God, yeah.
particularly at some of the bigger conventions. I get the really young baby cosplayer with their parents that is just kind of starting out, and I'm like, pick a handle, stick with it. Stop telling people your name today. Particularly if you have a name that is a little bit more distinctive. That was scary. And then it wasn't until the third time he turned up where the police arrested him.
Jesus. What's wrong with people?
Yeah.
Oh. We need to end this soon. Let's end it on a
On a high note.
on a high note. What can we say? I'm looking forward to editing those wall photos from MegaCon Live.
I'm looking forward to seeing them.
It
was a really fun costume to wear.
Yeah, I bet it was. But it was cold that weekend, so I was like, "Are you okay? Are you alright?"
It's fine because it's so much fur.
Mm.
So like the wolf it has the fur leg warmers, and then the fur on the arms, and then the hat, and then it's essentially a fur skirt. So I was inside and I was too hot. So I came outside, and even though like my shoulders are out and the tops of my legs are out, I was just like, I'm so hot. I need to go outside and cool down.
Oh.
It was surprisingly a really like weather appropriate costume. And really fun to wear because I wear a lot of really, really big, like insane builds because that's what I like to make.
Yeah.
So to be able to wear a costume where I can could sort of relatively run around in and climb trees and whatnot was really fun. But again, it wasn't mine. It's a costume that my friend Just Jen Cosplay made. And she very graciously let me borrow it, and she let me borrow it again for a convention later in the year just because I loved wearing it so much.
That's good. That's really, really good. I'm trying to think, have I actually taken a photo of you or met you in a costume you actually made? I'm trying to think. I think the answer is no at the moment.
Probably not. You've taken photos of my costumes on other people.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Who? Or what costume? Actually, yeah, who and the costume?
Jen, Yaz. I'll point them out to you.
Yeah, you point them out to me.
Okay. But this is the thing. Like, I'm such a big proponent of this. You occasionally get people that are like quote unquote claim a character. I'm like, nah, let's just like share. Exactly. I love sharing cosplays. It brings me so much happiness, and it means my costumes get a much longer life than I would ever give them. And it makes the hobby so much more sustainable for everyone, particularly people that have energy level issues.
Yeah.
Of varying flavors. Yeah, so I've been doing it a lot last couple of years, and it's really great. Like,
no, totally understand. Well, that's a good happy note to end on. So thank you very much, Shadow Bright.
No worries.
Absolutely fine. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye, and they're going to say goodbye. So bye, guys.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
No problem. Anytime. Bye.